Donald Trump asks war hawk Mike Waltz to serve as his national security advisor. Hold on, Mike Waltz, as in the same Mike Waltz who was an advisor to Dick Cheney, Mike Waltz? Oh, I'm sure this is going to go well for everybody. There were a lot of people who were hoping that maybe Trump had learned his lesson from the last time he was in office, and that perhaps he wouldn't pick hawks to run his administration while claiming to be the anti-war candidate. Yeah, I'm here to tell you don't get your hopes up because it looked like he ain't learned shit. Because not only recently did he announce that he wanted Stefanik to serve as his ambassador. Yes, one of the most Zionist legislators in the U.S. who is trying to get students and administrators fired and kicked off of campuses for protesting Israel's genocide. But he then decides to follow that hit with picking Mike Waltz as his national security advisor. If you're one of those people who are holding on to an inkling of hope that Trump will resolve the situation between Russia and Ukraine, you might want to go ahead and pump your brakes there. Because this is the same Mike Waltz who said, if you want to resolve the situation and achieve peace, you actually need to escalate the war in Russia even further. This is the same Mike Waltz, ladies and gentlemen, who is trying to convince the Biden administration to stay in Afghanistan. But as he waxed poetically about how dangerous the Taliban is and how the U.S. needs to stay to deal with them, he forgot to mention the part where he made $26 million off of defense contracting. And while we were in Afghanistan, he personally was training and mentoring Afghan security forces on his route to that $26 million. And I bet you can't guess where he got the majority of his campaign money. Oh, you already guessed AIPAC? Well, yeah, because of course it's AIPAC. Because how else would you get in a position like this if you weren't willing to kiss Israel's ass while they commit genocide and try to start World War III? So you get rid of Nikki Haley and you bring in Stefanik. You get rid of Bolton and you bring in Waltz. Trump has not learned a damn thing since leaving office last time. And all you MAGA folks out there, if you're expecting something to change between now and the beginning of his term, I suggest y'all start criticizing him right now while he's still listening, because otherwise, y'all are about to end up with an administration just as bad as Joe Biden. And Lord knows y'all don't want that, because we're going to be on his head just as much as we were on Joe Biden's head if he continues with this imperial, war hawkish type of governance that we just got rid of.
What's poppin'? What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome to the second Nick and New in a row this week. We are still greatly enjoying not only the liberal meltdown, but the MAGA meltdown as well, because people who voted for Trump because they thought they was voting against neoliberalism, they are going through some things right now. The Tucker Carlson right, and Tucker Carlson was one of the many people on the right who supported Trump, who hated Ben Shapiro. You guys know the drama between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. And Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, all these people, they act very smug, considering the Ben Shapiro wing of MAGA is clearly the most influential. So now Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, because all these people have called out Ben Shapiro, guys. A lot of these people on the right, they are going through some things because they thought Ben Shapiro was the one who was irrelevant. You guys remember that video with Sneeko I showed you guys? That clown Sneeko? Where Sneeko was like, no, the MAGA movement doesn't represent Israel. These fucking clowns, right? Who I'm never going to let them live it down. And I already saw some people, because I destroyed Dave Smith on Twitter. I saw the same people like, oh my God, Nick, I know Dave Smith is wrong here, but why are you being so mean? I'm like, so now you guys want to play civility politics? Appeal to civility politics does not work on me. If you are MAGA, you are supporting a billionaire Zionist imperialist in Donald Trump. You used your audience, which is much larger than mine, I admit. Alex Jones, Candace Owens, we're talking about like hundreds of times bigger than RBN. So you are guilty of a unbelievable sin of misleading people into supporting a con man. The same thing that Cenk Uygur has done in his career, which is why I say there's no difference between a Tucker Carlson and a Cenk Uygur. I have all the funk in the world over the people who propagandize others. Now, I go hard on Twitter, I go hard on YouTube, but if you meet me in real life, and people who met me in Chicago and Seattle, and people who know me in real life, they will tell you I'm actually very lenient towards the propagandized. You know what I mean? I'm very lenient towards people who are victims. Like the people who listen to Candace Owens and then supported Trump because they thought Trump was fighting against Israel. These are the people who was misled. And now there's a lot of MAGA cope going on. There's this meme going around. Let me show you guys this. There's this big meme going around with all these big right-wing accounts. Look at this. Look at this nonsense. Why do you guys think people believe this? They are spreading this picture showing how when Donald Trump was running for election, he was promising to put America first. And now that Donald Trump is president, he's now selling out to Israel. Sir and ma'am, Donald Trump smeared Americans. He smeared Americans as terrorists because they had the audacity to protest the genocidal war crimes of Israel. And now he is putting a team together with the promise of cracking down on the free speech of Americans, something that he said he would do while he was campaigning. So Donald Trump was smearing Americans as being traitors while he was being the most active traitor of them all by smearing his voting populace because they're calling out the genocidal state of Israel, which the entirety of the world population opposes. So Donald Trump, who took a paycheck from Sheldon Adelson, at the RNC, they had so many of these unhinged Zionist speakers. Zionist is now pretending, or I should say MAGA people are now pretending that Trump switches a switch on him. He tricked them. That is not what happened. Donald Trump ran as a Zionist, and then people choosing to ignore it because they wasn't organizing among an anti-imperialist line, among a class line. They was organizing among the culture war. And now they agree with Ben Shapiro on the culture war. They agree that they should distract the working class with culture war issues. But what people like Candace Owens and Alex Jones didn't realize is the person that they despise, Ben Shapiro, had way more influence than MAGA than they did. Way more influence on Donald Trump and MAGA than Tucker Carlson. Elise Stefanik has more influence on Donald Trump than Ron Paul. Meanwhile, Ron Paul and his cuck libertarian army all bent the knee to the big government spending, cop-loving, military-industrial complex funding Donald Trump. I never want to hear you guys say a goddamn thing to me about libertarian. The Dave Smith types, the Ron Paul types. I never want people, Nick, why don't you want to work with the libertarians? I told you that these frauds will fold to the capitalist class at the end of the day. Because their attachment to whiteness and their attachment to the culture war is way stronger than their class solidarity. Dave Smith wants to fit in with the rich MAGA crowd. So his willingness and his wanting of being part of the Candace Owens, Alex Jones sphere, that is stronger than any loyalty that he has to the peace movement and to the working class. So here, I'm sorry for the people only listening to me. Here is Ben Shapiro as Alex Jones and Candace Owens is melting down about his picks. No one is happier than Ben Shapiro. Waltz for NSA, Rubio for Secretary of State. I got a fever. and the only prescription is more winning. You guys see who's the happiest? You guys see who's the happiest now that Donald Trump won? It's the Ben Shapiro wing of MAGA, you idiots. There was no Tucker Carlson wing of MAGA. Donald Trump and Republicans is more than happy to take your support if you was willing to offer it. But the Dave Smith, the Tucker Carlson, the Candace Owens, the Alec Jones, they're about to go through some shit. I'm going to be here to laugh at them because what they did is they ultimately sold out the working class to the same swamp that they claimed they wanted to fight. So you guys know I watch too much corporate media. I'm glad I found this clip because this clip sums up essentially every single MSNBC story about Trump cabinet picks, where they like, holy shit, man. Shit, these picks not that bad, man. You got Marco Rubio. He got Elise Stefanik. Holy shit, he got fucking Mike Huckabee. Holy shit, he put in an all-star lineup of swamp monsters. So here's just one example of like what the corporate media is running.
Big picture here, as we're seeing with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, a combat veteran, some Democrats are pleasantly surprised with the caliber of people. They're not people they're going to ever disagree with on a partisan basis, but these are people with records in the foreign policy area, people who understand the world, and who are not necessarily on board with shrinking and this America First idea that the United States should not project power around the world, which is a bit of a surprise.
He said, Democrats, MAGA, are you okay with it? Democrats are excited because Donald Trump are picking people in this guy's own wars or who are not American first. And you guys see the disgusting ideology of the liberal class? The liberal class believe that the role of the United States is to flex their geopolitical power around the world. Do you guys see the psychotic worldview of white America that is prevalent in both parties? Full spectrum dominance, genocidal ideology, imperialism, colonialism. This is what white America stands for. And I know you guys hate when I say it, but you guys got to have tough conversations with your family members because you got white Karens on one side voting for warmongering Democrats, and you got white Karens on the other side voting for Republicans. And this is the mainstream ideology that has impacted on our country. And then people are like, oh, well, what about the Hakeem Jeffries? How about the Jim Clyburns? They exist because they can't get power in this obsessive, genocidal white American state unless they adapt and adopt the same ideology of white America, which is dominant colonialism. Let me play for you guys again. This is prevalent on both the liberal class and the conservative class in white America. Let me show you guys.
Board with shrinking and this America First idea that the United States should not project power around the world.
See, look, that's the opinion of white America, guys. I know it hurts your feelings. Because you want to believe you live in a great country, that your people are nice and honest. But the ideology of the UK, of the United States, and white Europeans as a whole has been to dominate other cultures. It's to expand colonialism. And then they look at black people like we're weak because we didn't do that. You know what I mean? They have the nerve to call other people violent as they destabilize other fucking entire ass regions. And then poor white people, they vote for this because they are so race obsessed, they can't form a class solidarity working class unit with poor black people because they don't want the poor black people to benefit from universal health care. So they take the hit. They take the hit out of race loyalty, but that's a conversation a lot of people not ready to have. But as you see, Democrats excited because Donald Trump sold out the American First agenda.
And this America First idea that the United States should not project power around the world, which is a bit of a surprise. Big picture here, as we're seeing with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, a combat veteran.
And that's this is the Ben Shapiro wing winning, man. And I'm gonna show you guys Alec Jones and Candace Owens, they were having a hard time dealing with this. Here, Ben Shapiro, once again. The guy, Ben Shapiro, said he lives in America instead of Israel because he feels like he can better fight for Israel as a propagandist who lives in America. Look it up. This is things that Ben Shapiro openly says. Openly says that the only reason he don't live in Israel because it's more useful for him to be an American propagandist. And you realize that he is the most influential motherfucker in Maga. This is the ideology that Trump is listening to. Amazing picks tonight. Pete is terrific. That's the defense secretary who is completely batshit crazy. Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk who making a government efficiency program, which I promise you, it's going to be very convenient for the ruling class that they're going to make a government efficiency board or program. And I promise you, they will not investigate the Pentagon. Record this, mark down the date, save the stream. I promise you right now. Cash it in the bank. I'm telling you guys right now, there's this fucking government efficiency board that Elon Musk is making. I promise you that they are going to conveniently ignore the Pentagon who can't pass an audit. It's going to be very convenient for the Pentagon. I promise you that's how this is going to work. As you have Elon Musk and all these poor white boys cheering this on. Governor Mike Huckabee is a spectacular choice. And let me show you guys Mike Huckabee. And this is who Ben Shapiro is praising. And then I'm going to show you guys Alex Jones and how they're coping with this because we should have Midwestern Mark join us here soon. So let me show you guys this. This is the Israeli ambassador to the United States. This is why Ben Shapiro is so happy right now with the picks of Donald Trump.
Basically, I mean, there really is no such thing as, I have to be careful saying this, because people really get upset. There's really no such thing as a Palestinian. There's not Arab and Persians. You know, and there's such complexity within that. There's really no such thing.
Isn't it funny that everything, and for one, this is genocidal ideology, but isn't it funny that everything that Zionists say is pure projections? You can find Palestinian elders, and there was one who was speaking at the Free Palestine March who had a Palestinian passport and ID from 1930, way before Israel was created. Then you had the UN who approved of the Nakba, where they had a genocide of people who was living there before, which led to the refugee crisis in Gaza, which is what they call the Great Atrocity, the Nakba. And this is what Zionists, they will openly admit. Like, if you ask people who don't know that much about this issue, I'm like, okay, there's a state of Israel. What happened to the people who lived on the land before Israel? For other people who think this is a complicated topic, just a quick question. What do you think happened to all the people? That's the first question I always ask people. They killed them. The ones who didn't die became refugees in Gaza. So the people who actually don't exist are Israelis. Israelis don't exist, my friends. Israelis are Polish people, Europeans, and then like Africans they imported, and other fucking European constituencies. You have people who live in New York who are Israelis. Israelis is a settler colonial identity that was created out of thin air. So isn't it funny? I bring this up only to highlight the fact that everything that Zionists have is pure projection. So when they tell you that Palestinians are actually not a real thing, it's actually the exact opposite. Israel was created. My grandmother is older than Israel. You have someone in your family, most likely, that is older than the state of Israel. But anyway, let me continue this clip. It is infuriating to listen to this genocidal white supremacist garbage.
And there's such complexity within that. There's really no such thing. That's been a political tool to try to force land away from Israel.
The two-state solution, if we maintain two governments holding the same piece of real estate, is irrational and unworkable. If there is a two-state solution, the Palestinian state needs to be outside the boundaries of the nation of Israel. There's plenty of land in the world that we could find a place and say, okay, let's create a Palestinian state.
Why didn't you guys, if you wanted a Jewish state, which you guys created, why do you guys punish the Palestinians for the crimes of the Europeans? So if I don't even agree with this ideology, to be clear. But taking your ideology that you have, shouldn't the insane Zionists, shouldn't they have Germany? It was Germany who committed the Holocaust, not the Palestinians. It's Europe that was the home in the rise of anti-Semitism boomed in Europe, not the Middle East. In fact, many countries in the Middle East took Jewish people in safe haven in times where anti-Semitism would go on a boom in Europe. But white people pulled the biggest trick, probably of our lifetime, probably of this century, where white people managed to shift the blame on what they did to Jewish people onto the Palestinians. Isn't that incredible what they pulled off? All right, I'm low on time because Midwestern Marx is joining us. Hopefully you guys enjoying the rant. Always I do a little pre-show ranting for my guest joins. Damn, we got 1,050 people watching on X and YouTube. Make sure you guys share. I have my good friends, my comrades, Midwestern March, who will be joining us.
Look, everyone very excited.
I essentially just love people who actually do stuff. You know what I mean? There's nothing that annoys me more than do nothing fucks. Like these do nothing fucks with anime profile pictures who does nothing but critique actual activists. So I'd rather have conversations with actual activists. And I'm excited to have Midwestern Mark join us. So here's the main story of the day. I'm sorry I couldn't get to a lot of the chats, guys. It's too hard to get in. Make sure you guys support Rome. My heart is still breaking. I can't really talk about it. Also for legal purposes as well. But make sure you support my brother Rome right now. As much as I want to talk about it, I really can't. Because I don't even want to jeopardize anything that's going on with Rome, too. Realizing that their dear leader betrayed them makes Maga low-key more intelligent than libs. Oh, dude, don't get me wrong, guys. I said this before on Twitter. I said it on RBN as well. I'm going to give MAGA hell. But I have way more respect than MAGA than the Democrats. They have been way more critical of Trump and their choices than liberals ever was of Democrats. The Democrats melted down and called Donald Trump a racist and said he was beyond the pale. Why? Because he supported a wall. Remember? Democrats supported a wall. Donald Trump said we need to build a wall at the border. He had kids in cages, all this nonsense. And liberals pretended that was the worst thing that any politician in the United States have ever done. So then Democrats took office. They realized building the border wall was popular among duopoly voters, and then they switched their opinion on a dime. The Democrat leadership told the voters, hey, by the way, we support the wall now. And the response of the liberal class, after deeming Donald Trump the most evil person of all time because of the wall, was to say, oh yeah, I guess the wall is a good idea. You guys see how the liberal class, they are way more coachy than MAGA. So I'm going to continue to give the business to MAGA. But hey, at least these motherfuckers are on the ball with calling out the government. I'm hurting a few of their feelings, but I also got a few of them cheering me on. Like, it's weird. I thought I would get way more heat from MAGA for dragging them the way I've been. But honestly, there have been a lot of MAGA people that have been fucking cheering me on. Compare that to the liberals who can't even hold their side accountable for supporting genocide and supporting immigration policies that they called half of America racist for supporting. And we have my brother Midwestern March. They joining me soon. I'm gonna introduce you guys here soon. I'm gonna wrap this segment up. You guys still got a little bit more time. I'm gonna introduce you guys soon. I'm looking forward to our conversation. So fuck, I've been ranting too long. Let me show you guys this damn clip. Oh Jesus! So we explained how Ben Shapiro, the Ben Shapiro wing of MAGA, is not only winning, they are dominant. Dominant in terms of influence. The Ben Shapiro wing has all the money, and they have Donald Trump's ear. So here's Candace Owens and Alex Jones, after lying to workers and telling people that Donald Trump is the savior of the working class. Now they got a save face, and they come up with, I believe, is the most pathetic excuse I've ever heard to justify why Donald Trump is actively selling out their base. Let's listen to this nonsense. Oh, come on. Hold on, I have to refresh this. Sorry, I don't know what the fuck. Twitter does that sometimes. Let me look. Look at the tweet here. Sometimes you have to refresh it. No, guys, no. I'm not picking on this guy, but I see it in the side of the eye. I see people say this all the time. You guys are undisputedly wrong. I'm sorry. like the Sneeko, the Alex Jones, the Candace Owens, the Tucker Carlsons. You guys say this out of cope. I'm sorry. When you guys say Ben is not MAGA, no one is more influential than MAGA than Ben Shapiro. Who you guys think is picking Donald Trump picks? The Ben Shapiro wing of MAGA. So I'm sorry. You guys are just wrong when you guys say that. So here Alex Jones coping with that. Candace Owens issued an emergency warning to Trump. He's being manipulated, guys. It's not that he's class loyal, not that he's a billionaire. He don't give a fuck about
accountable. They're
he's a dumbass who's being manipulated.
First people that had me on your show. I think it was PJW, and then I did your show. But look, everyone very excited last week. We should be excited. It was a major win. It was too big to rig. I think it provided even further evidence that 2020 was rigged. For those who are not too big of cowards to openly admit that because they're so scared of being called a conspiracy theorist or an insurrectionist. I've maintained that 2020 was stolen. They used COVID to do it. Now, the first part of the sprint was just getting Trump into the office. We obviously understood that he is the man for the job. He's been resilient. He's survived assassination attempts. And I think now what it is about holding basically everyone around him accountable, their feet to the fire, and making sure.
So once again, you guys hear me. I'm giving these people all the smoke in the world, but this is completely opposite for the liberal class, by the way. The liberal class was the people who was booing and shouting, people who was protesting genocide. These are the people that said 4 more years, 4 more years. Hey, God, can you please stop killing children? Boo! And okay, guys, please stop sending Israel weapons, please. Boo! Don't ever boo our queen. You guys see the difference? So I'm having fun giving these people the business, but I at least acknowledge, you guys see how they way more willing to hold their people accountable. The only problem is you have no way to do it because Donald Trump is only running for 1 term. Sorry, no refunds.
Sure that there is not an infiltration, and that is a major concern right now, that there are people around him that have infiltrated. And the biggest example of that, of course, is the fact that Mike Pompeo's name was even being floated at all. Nikki Haley's name was even being floated at all. I had it on very good authority, and I'm not going to name names here, but there were basically neocons, the war hawks, the people that love to send Americans over to die overseas, especially if they're Southern Americans. They love to send Southern men over to die overseas because they're probably the last shred of masculinity that we have in this country, and they are hell-bent on this war with Iran. And so the concern was that he was going to put people in his cabinet that are these war hawks. And so I want to know, yes, it's great. Trump tweets that Mike Pompeo, thank you, Nikki Haley, for your service. Thank you, Mike Pompeo. You will not be in the new administration. But what's important is who was in his ear that even...
The people in his ear, Candace and Alex, is the Ben Shapiro wing of the MAGA army. Marion Adelson gave Trump a $100 million payoff, and you guys pretending you don't know that? I'll let it continue because I'm gonna start the next segment here soon.
Suggested it.
But you guys see the cope? MAGA was infiltrated. No, Donald Trump is class loyal. He's a class loyal Zionist neocon, and he hasn't been his entire life. Donald Trump is so loyal to the Zionist regime, he gave away his daughter to one of them. The same way that Kamala Harris married into the Zionist mob, Donald Trump gave away his daughter to one to show how fucking loyal he was to the Zionist regime. Facts over your feelings. Imagine loving the Zionists so much that you give your daughter away. Anyway, sorry, I know I'm getting a little bit problematic here. All right, let's continue.
That person also has to go. Every person who said to him, yes, hire Mike Pompeo, get him back in there, they also need to go, because we have the neocons bragging in private that they've got a guy on the inside. And here's what they're saying. This is what I was told by somebody who was present for one of these conversations held by a neocon. They basically said they know how to manipulate Trump. They know that all they have to do is to flatter him, right?
You're not embarrassed. You're not embarrassed that you voted for that guy. You're not embarrassed that you voted for the guy who has so little core ideology, who has so little principles that he can be fucking influenced by neocons saying nice things to him. That's the guy you voted for, you dipshit. All right, last clip. I got Midwestern Marx here, so this will be last clip, and then we move on. I'm having too much fun with this, man. Like, these are the people who, they got giant influence, and they're here to dragging the working class along. Bullshitting the working class. Oh, man, not Trump. He's not even a sellout. He's just like compliments. And the neocons, they come up to him, and they give him compliments, and we've got to give him compliments, too. The fuck are you guys talking? This is the worst clip I've ever seen. One last clip. I'm sorry for you guys waiting in the back, but one more clip and I introduce my guest.
All we have to do is flatter.
We'll play this part one more time.
That person also has to go. Every person who said to him, yes, hire Mike Pompeo, get him back in there, they also need to go, because we have the neocons bragging in private that they've got a guy on the inside. And here's what they're saying. This is what I was told by somebody who was present for one of these conversations held by a neocon. They basically said they know how to manipulate Trump. They know that all they have to do is to flatter him, right? All we have to do is flatter Trump and tell him that if he does this, he's going to be perceived as amazing. And they feel that because they came in at the end with money, that Trump will do as they say. Now,
So you just admit that you support a sellout?
Don't believe that. I know Trump is his own man, and I think that's going to give them trouble. Is Trump is an alpha. He's not going to sit around.
You just admitted that he wasn't. Like, the conflicting feelings. How can you say this man's an alpha, but his entire opinions and positions on geopolitical politics can change based on who gives them the best belly rubs? You got a billionaire giving Donald Trump belly rubs, and he fucking changes opinion, and you calling him an alpha? Last clip.
Around and be bossed around by a bunch of people. But of course, this is a major concern for us, and we're still happy, we're still celebrating, but now we have to make sure that these cabinet picks are correct.
Too late. No refunds. No refunds. Anyway, I apologize. I ran a little bit late there, but I am joined by my amazing comrades, friends of RBN. It's great to have Midwestern Mark join us. What's poppin', Eddie, Noah, and Carlos? Thank you for joining me on RBN again, guys.
You bet. Thanks for having us.
What's popping, guys? And I've been after this election, I think this is a great time to continue to radicalize the working class, because there are liberals who are going through some things. You guys see that MAGA, they're currently going through some things. So, guys, there was a time, thank God I didn't have social media back then, or you guys would have been screenshotting me saying, "This you, Nick?" Because there was a time when I was a shit lib back in my teenage years, when I supported Obama and them, and I used to think that the reason why the Democrats lose to Republicans is because they were simply incompetent. so then when I saw like Obama lost 1,000 seats, when I saw them constantly cave to Republicans, that when I was going through my face, I was like, man, dude, there's something wrong with liberalism. And I was young, dumb teenager. Then I started looking into things, and all of a sudden I became more radicalized. There are a lot of Gen Z dumb liberals right now that are asking questions about how Kamala lost, and they're becoming more radicalized. So we were supposed to be here to pick them up and radicalize them, and pick up the MAGA people who are being radicalized after Trump will inevitably sell them out. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to my brother Eddie first. Then we go Noah and Carlos. What do you guys think the approach of the left? And I'm not talking about Democrats. I'm not talking about shitlibs. What should the approach of the left be right now in this moment post-election? Thanks for joining me once again.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having us on. That's a great question, and one we've been asking ourselves and discussing amongst ourselves. I think making the point that you just made is extremely important, and this is something that Michael Parenti was big on his entire career, one of my heroes. The Democrats are not incompetent. They are just corrupt, right? They're not just accidentally lying us into these wars or accidentally making mistakes and and supporting the war in Syria or the war in Libya or not doing anything for the working class. No, that is their function. That's what they do. They are a corrupt political party who knows how to play off of the Republicans in order to get elected, using culture war issues or whatever else, like political footballs, in order to get in. So I think we need to make that point to people who are more on the liberal left side, make the point that, the Democrats are part of the system. The Republicans couldn't function without the Democrats. They are slightly different on like culture war issues, but they're two sides of the same coin. They serve the same function of upholding capitalism and the capitalist ruling class. And then when it comes to the MAGA people, I mean, I think it's fairly obvious what the line of rhetoric should be to them. Like, they think Trump is this anti-establishment, anti-war populist figure, and he just announced that Marco Rubio is going to be his Secretary of State, one of the loudest voices in favor of the embargo on Cuba. This Miami Cuban neocon who's never seen a war that he doesn't like, received millions of dollars from, or over $1 million from the Zionist lobby and hundreds of thousands of dollars from the military industrial complex. So Trump promised to drain the swamp. And once again, as with the last 4 years, he's drowning in the swamp. So I think this is a good opportunity to show the working class sections of Trump's MAGA base that this rich guy who's loyal to the capitalist class, which he comes from, is not going to be the savior of the working class. What can save the working class in this country is them organizing themselves, organizing their workplaces, their communities, and fighting for themselves and fighting for their community rather than waiting for this populist demagogue to save them.
Very well. So I want to get the rest of Midwestern Marx in. Let's go to Noah and then Carlos on the same topic of what the direction the left should be in Trump 2.0 era, right? Go ahead, Noah.
So I think that there's two prongs I want to approach this with: how we talk to liberals and how we talk to conservatives. And I'm not talking about like the far anything, right? Like all these categories that the ruling class wants us to keep our brains in. With liberals, literally the only reason any of them even went out to vote was because Kamala Harris wasn't Trump. And so the way I approach them is, I think your strategy is flawed. If you look at the way presidential elections have gone throughout the centuries in the US, this is never going to be something that actually creates any sort of change. At the end of the day, these liberals, yeah, they can be annoying, but they need the same things any of the rest of us do so long as they're in the working class. Yeah, I know they're all mostly middle class, but the ones that are in the working class is who I'm talking about. And so that's exactly where I begin with. And then I take them to where Eddie just went, right? That there's only one way that we get the things we need in the working class in this country, and it's doing it ourselves. We can't wait for some rich liberal from New York or wherever to save us, because they demonstrate over and over and over again that they will not. And I take a similar tack with MAGA people, right? Like, look at Trump's last term, right? He said he wanted to drain the swamp, but Rex Tillerson was his Secretary of State pick. Rex Tillerson, for anyone who doesn't know, was the CEO of ExxonMobil, the biggest swamp monster you could possibly dream of. And now we're at this interesting time when MAGA seems to be very upset at the way the Trump administration is beginning. And you see like they're beginning to cope, saying, oh, it's the neocons are manipulating him. All they got to do is flatter him and they'll get their way, and we'll have this evil thing. The neocons will take over. And to them, I say, like, do you really think your man, Trump, is that stupid? This guy who grew up super rich, that he's just going to let someone flatter him into getting their way? No, he's a really smart guy. If he isn't making change, it's because he cannot or will not. And I don't really care which one you think it is, whether he will not or cannot. The answer is the same. And again, it leads back to what Eddie just said. The only way we get change in this country is to do it our damn self.
Very well said, Noah. Carlos, I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having us on, brother. And I would definitely echo everything that the three of you have said. There was an American diplomat and ideologue of the imperialist establishment, Richard Haas, that wrote in a prominent foreign policy magazine earlier this year that the biggest enemy of the U.S. is not Iran, China, or Russia. The biggest enemy is the American people. You know why? Because empires generally fall from inside. It is only the American people that can bring about the complete and utter destruction of U.S. imperialism. And I think that what Trump represented was a way for the American people to voice their discontent within the confines of American politics in a way that absorbed that discontent into something that's fully compatible with the establishment itself. And in a way, what Trump represents, and it's made explicit in this victory this year, is an inversal of the formula Glenn Ford gave us some years ago. You know, that the Democrats were the more efficient evil, right? Not the lesser evil, but the more effective, more efficient evil, because they put a very nice gloss on imperialism. You know, at a time of vast discontent, at a time where there's a serious crisis of legitimacy and where the spontaneous natural politics of American working people has to have some form of dissenting taste to it. And Trump is presenting that form in a way that's compatible with the establishment. In our era, Trump is the most effective evil. Why? Because he's the one that has been able to capture and basically recuperate the energies, the radical dissenting energies of a good part of that base. So the question is, what does the left do, the genuine communist socialist left? Well, to borrow a slogan from our friend and comrade and executive chairman of the ACP, Haz al-Din, the whole time that the MAGA communist strategy was put forth, the idea was not to get the clown. The idea is you go to McDonald's to get the burger, not the clown. And the burger is the masses. It's the people, because it's only the people that make history. It's not these great figures, it's the people. So I think now we have a unique opportunity to show the part of the working class that was with MAGA and the part of the working class that wasn't with MAGA, that the issues that they see in front of them, that this thing that they're trying to spin as Trump being naive or being too innocent, no. That idea that he's too innocent, that he's being manipulated, is a part of what is necessary for them to reproduce the phenomenon that is being brought into question by people like Candace Owens. That's a necessary component of it. So do what Marxists are supposed to do. Show the systematic character of the ills, of the problems that people experience in their individual lives, and show them the role that Trump played in order to get them to see in him a sort of false messiah, and show them that the real messiah is seen only when they look in the mirror. When they look in the mirror, they see a working class individual. That's the real messiah. That's the real agent of history. That's who is actually going to change their conditions for the better.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting things said there, and we can kind of have an open panel on this topic. And I just say this because I know some of these people. The way that the reason why some people were hesitant to support ACP and MAGA communism, because they saw they see the American flag, they saw the MAGA term, right? They see and they think that you guys are supporting right-wing ideology. But what it seems like you guys are actually saying is that you guys are trying to convince people, like the people who I live next to in Missouri, because in Missouri, they voted for increased minimum wage 3 times in a row, and Medicaid expansion, affordable housing. When given a choice, these poor white people, these people in the Midwest, they're very progressive. So it seems like your guys' goal is to awaken this working class and let them understand that Donald Trump is actually not on their side. And this is what I tell these people, because you talk to, like, I live around these people. I see a lot of these DSA liberal types who they despise the working class because they live in New York, They live in California. They live in blue states, so they're only around liberals. So they have like this warped misconception of what people in the Midwest is like. And I could tell you, I could tell you guys, I talk to people in Missouri. I live here all my life. I sold cars in Kansas around the most conservative motherfuckers you can think of. They all support progressive shit. Like they all knew I was a Bernie bro. I would talk to them about like, y'all support healthcare. Man, they're like, yeah, I support that too. So what we need to do, we need to have a politics that appealing to the entirety of the working class, to let them know that you're not a patriot if you support sending money to Israel. You're not a patriot if you support giant police budgets. You're a patriot if you support your brothers and sisters having health care. This is why I used to tell people knocking doors when I used to work. Like, you're not a patriot, but and that's kind of the ideology I see that you guys are bringing. So any thoughts, Eddie, Noah, Carlos, before I ask my next question?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything you were saying. You know, we talked, Danny Shaw is a part of the Midwestern Marx Institute who's out there in New York, and like, it's, you know, a different thing for him talking to people out there than it is for us here in the Midwest, which is something that we've always maintained, that there are sort of different political climates and cultures all across the U.S. But Danny's learned a lot, you know, about people in middle America. He's realized that, as you said, when it comes to economics, especially, they are progressive. They aren't.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Eddie. They get tricked by the culture war. I'm telling you guys. Yeah. I talked to these poor white people. They smoking weed. I mean, we was cool. You know what I mean? They were smoking weed. We talking about having health care. And unfortunately, the problem is they get tricked by the culture war, by the trans issue, by all this stuff, and they vote against their interests with something that we got to defeat, right? But sorry to interrupt, Eddie. I want you to finish your thought, brother. Go ahead.
No, you're good. That's absolutely correct. They think, you know, they see Trump going against quote unquote wokeism, and they're like, oh, yes, he's our savior, when he's not, you know, actually doing anything that's economically populist, that's actually going to change their lives. And, you know, I get why people might be off put by a slogan like MAGA communism, you know, but strategically, like, I realize what I look like. I realize, you know, people tell me all the time I look like a Trump supporter. So, you know, why not use that to infiltrate the Trump supporters and teach them communism?
Dude, I was surprised. Hopefully I'm not being rude, but I was surprised when you told me you was a socialist. I was like, damn. Exactly. Hey, Noah, Carlos, you guys want to chime in before I ask you the next question?
Yeah, just real quick. I get the same thing. You know, I'm a redneck from Ohio, right? But at the end of the day, that I completely blanked on what I was going to say. Crap. MAGA communism, this slogan, and it wasn't one the Midwestern Marx Institute ever used, right? Our sort of the reconstitution of the Communist Party in America came after that slogan kind of ran its course, but it was always about going into McDonald's for the burger, not the clown, right? It was always about approaching this revolutionary potential within the working class. That, you know, the reason they see wokeism as an enemy is because they see it as coming down from the ruling class, right? They already have this revolutionary potential. And so it was just about explaining how Trump is never going to be a solution. The only solution is going to be communism, right? And I think the only reason it's stuck around, that this, you know, we all are Trump supporters. And I saw on Twitter the other day, like, it's so funny to watch ACP realize that Trump was never an anti-imperialist communist. And it's like,
yeah, I saw her.
This is what we've always
I noticed too, and there's a lot of people who get upset whenever I just talk to you guys. And I just want to say, like, publicly, that I think you guys are extremely shady. Like, I see someone already tweeting. I don't want to blast them. I see someone already tweeting like, man, I think it's weird. Why RBN platforming ACP? I find it very shady that there's these people who they don't use their real name. They got anime profile pictures. They don't do anything. They do nothing. They are literally lazy bums who do nothing. You know what I mean? And then they spend all their time criticizing other activists. So I'm not saying I align with ACP all the way, but I see the ACP doing mutual aid. I see them in their community. I'm not seeing them voting for Democrats. I'm seeing them oppose imperialism. So we have enough we agree with where we can have a fucking conversation, you goddamn children. Yo, you tell me I'm gonna talk to you. I'm telling you guys right now, that's not gonna happen. Go ahead, no. I'm sorry, Wanda.
No, it's fine. These posts blow up. is these people with like a few
It's
hundred
shady, bro. It's
followers
shady.
somehow get 10,000 likes when they lie about ACP, right? Look at who's retweeting these. It's NAFO. And what do we know about NAFO?
Yeah.
It's a straight up psyop, right? Like it's all AstroTurf. And so you got to ask yourself if these anonymous accounts tied to neo-Nazis are trying to lie to you about the Communist Party, how seriously should you take what they're saying, you know?
Yeah, and if you're wondering why I'm extremely sympathetic with my ACP brothers, because RBN went through the same thing, guys. You guys saw it. You guys saw the liberals who turned the chairman against us, and they failed because now we met with the chairman in Chicago, and he realized that he was lied to. You have all these anonymous bots that was spamming Fred Hampton Jr. Like, oh my God, don't you know the Fred Hampton leftists? They're grifters. The Fred Hampton leftists, they're grifters. Don't you know they're using Fred Hampton's name in order to push right-wing ideology? And I'm telling you guys, the same fucking people who was doing that to us, I see attacking the ACP. So I'm in a unique situation where I was smeared by the same people I see smearing them. So I'm less likely to trust them. So if it's weird when you're part of a smear campaign, when you're the victim of a smear campaign, guys. It's weird. When the whole Fred Hampton Jr. thing was going on, that whole bro, it was the weirdest thing ever. It was so coordinated. Then the rollout, I saw Emma Vigeland respond. All of a sudden, all the bread tubers who pretend they didn't know who he was, they commentated on it. I'm like, wait, I thought you guys didn't know us. What the fuck? So I've been a victim of coordinated DSA smear jobs. Mm-hmm. So that's why when I see the coordinated smear, DSA smear job on the ACP, I'm not buying it. I'm sorry. I'd rather have a conversation with you guys. And if you guys come on RBN and you start saying some crazy right-wing shit, then I call it out then, right? But it's very weird that the people who hate the ACP don't want to have a conversation with them. And that's why I think it's shady, because if they hate the ACP and they were going on Twitter spaces with you guys and they were having live streams with you guys, they're like, we're going to expose these motherfuckers. I'm going to expose why they actually got right-wing ideology. And they do it to your face. There will be respect and credibility to that. But I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing none of these ACP detractors like going live with you guys, debating you guys and destroying your ideology. I'm not seeing it. I'll pass it back to panel Noah, Carlos. Anything else you guys want to add before we move on?
Let me just say one more thing before giving it to Carlos. I try to get this to happen every single week. I do a call-in show every Monday, open for everybody to call in. Not a single one has done so.
Yeah, and guys, trust me, I've seen it too. Cause there are people who have entire like accounts dedicated towards hating your party, right? Mm-hmm. You would think that someone who spends so much time tweeting about you guys would be down to go to join a space with you guys to explain why they think you're sellouts, and they never do it. This is why I think it's shady. And it's always these people. They're anonymous, and they're the same people who smeared me. They still smear me to this day. You know what I mean? They're the people who call me anti-Semitic. They call me a secret sexist who don't care about abortion rights. In the same anti profile pictures, and the same people smear ACP in the same group, and I'm supposed to think this is legitimate? I'm sorry, guys. I just don't. So it's more therapy for me, I guess. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing before Carlos goes. They actually have an anti-ACP Discord with the only ideological agreement they have is hating us and wanting to destroy us. And there are actual fascists in that Discord, actual right-wingers and groypers and stuff who these so-called leftists are working together with, and then they call us the fascists. So it really is incredible. And I think the reason
you guys are the racists, even though you guys prop up RBN when these people never did. Isn't that
right? And
the people who never propped up RBN Mutual Aid calls Midwestern Marx racist, even though they prop us up all the time. Isn't that interesting? But go ahead, Eddie.
No,
it's interesting how like the two white guys let the Cuban guy talk too.
No, but there's whenever I see people start divide, that's where you should be very, very suspicious, because the logic of empire, the logic of the ruling class is always divide. I mean, you get it from James Madison's Federalist 10. How are we going to deal with this thing called voting that we're trying out in this new country? How are you going to sustain your privileges, Mr. Ruling Class Man? Well, we're going to divide the people as much as we can with any form we possibly can. So whenever I see these people that all they sow is division and division and division, that is the number one sign that someone's interest is not in advancing the class struggle on the part of our class. And, you know, the interesting thing that they do is that they turn that around and they say, well, when you begin to criticize them and expose them for what they are, they end up calling you divisive. But the thing is that unity in the abstract doesn't really exist. There's different forms of unity. There's the unity you can have between RBN and ACP and other groups that's constructive, that's real, that actually leads to the advancement of the class struggle. And then there's unity with these people who themselves only sow division. And that unity, that's like uniting fire and water. Both end up dissipating in the process. Nothing gets done with that sort of unity. That's a unity that brings about and reaps destruction, not something constructive.
Very well said. I'm going to do some acknowledgments here before I fall too behind here. And then I'm going to ask you guys, because apparently you guys won, the ACP won an election, but I'm going to ask you guys about that next. So thank you for the $2 for Rick. And I see people blowing the chat up about this. I'm trying to see if it was confirmed. I saw that Tulsi was floated. I'm trying to see if it's actually confirmed that she picked
That's
Tulsi.
crazy.
Here's Trump picked Tulsi for Director of National Intelligence. Gabbard named Director of National Intelligence. That would be definitely interesting. Yeah, I think it is confirmed. Let me share this tweet from Glenn. I'm kind of breaking this live with you now. This would be great news if this was the Tulsi Gabbard 2015. The Tulsi Gabbard we have now is a Tulsi Gabbard that says that Israel has to finish the job because Islamists are the biggest threat to America. So, yeah, I'm not that excited that person becomes the Director of National Intelligence. I wish we had a Tulsi Gabbard who was critical of the war machine in 2015. That version of Tulsi would be way more fucking exciting. But this doesn't move me at all. Do you guys have any thoughts? I have no really real reactions to this.
I mean,
team is still a disaster to me.
She's
Go
been
ahead.
a peace advocate on the war. I mean, I don't like Tulsi, as a person or her ideology, but she's been a peace advocate for the war in Syria specifically. And Trump has floated the idea of withdrawing U.S. troops from northern Syria, which is actually not coincidentally, where all of their oil is. So if they get that done, that would be like a win. But yeah, I mean, I'm not super excited. I mean, and even Tulsi's background is very sketchy. She has a lot of like neoconservative family members and people surrounding her, sort of a career politician. But hey, if they get the U.S. out of Syria, I'll give them 2 thumbs up.
And my question is, because here's the thing, and you were highlighting this very well earlier, Nick. Trump, like MAGA itself, is pervaded by all these contradictions. They have to somehow symbolically gesture to the working class base that wants a real, objectively left-wing populist and anti-war agenda. And then to the actual people that pull the strings, which is the billionaire class that Trump indubitably represents. And the thing is that to appease both, what they're going to try to do is put the people that part of the base likes because of certain anti-war rhetoric, even if it falls very, very short on certain questions, like the case of Tulsi Gabbard, put them in positions that have nothing to do with what the base values from them. So the question is, what the hell? How can the remaining kernels of anti-war sentiment in Tulsi, if there's any, how can those be employed in that position? Because they're trying to do something similar to Thomas Massie, which has, of course, been one of the most outspoken people against AIPAC and the war machine, etc. You know what they offered him? Secretary of Agriculture. What does that mean? What the hell is that going to do? But what that actually does is remove him from Congress, and then who's going to take his place in his state? A fucking Zionist.
Very, very good point.
One other thing about Tulsi and what this represents, most of the MAGA sort of movement, like the actual working class people who support Trump like that, are ideologically disposed towards isolationism, right? They are under the impression, the misconception really, that the U.S. is spending a whole bunch of money helping other countries while our country is falling apart. Now, we know that's not the case, but what we're going to see here is the contradiction of ideological isolationism running up against the necessity of finance capital to expand and increase the dollar zone at a time where it's shrinking because of BRICS. So we're going to see exactly what Carlos just said, right? A bait and switch, basically, where they can say, wait, we want peace, we want tariffs, we want isolation, and at the same time, make sure through military might that the dollar zone keeps expanding. Because as the dollar zone contracts, the value of the dollar goes down, and the whole thing basically begins to crumble.
Very, very well said. I want to move on to the next topic. We got two little quick segments we do here before we wrap up. And there's some people I can already sense the tears coming from people who hate the ACP, that are upset that RBN brought you guys on and praised you guys. But once again, I will always be okay with people who actually engage in their communities. I'm sure if I was to scour you guys' Twitter accounts and ACP, I'll probably find something I disagree with. But this is what we need to see here. And I definitely would love to do an event with ACP Kansas City one day. Because I much rather have a conversation and be in community with people actually out in the streets helping people than you do nothing anime profile picture motherfuckers on Twitter who we never ever seen do shit like this before. They're one side that inherently have way more credibility. And the side that has more credibility in my eyes is the group that's posting shit like this. And if you go on the ACP accounts, guys, you see you guys posting shit all the time. You know what I mean? You guys show all these actions where you guys are in the community. And apparently, and I definitely got to particularly get this a shout out because this is my backyard and somehow I missed this. I would have showed up if I knew about this. 100%. I didn't know about it though. It slipped between the cracks. But so big shout out to you guys. I love that you guys are actually on the ground. So God, no matter, and this is, I hope you guys feel the same, my community. If there are disagreements we have, it's way less important that people who actually show up on the ground for the working class. I'll read a tweet. I know I'm going for a while. I'm going to ask you guys about your election you won as well. I'm going to read a tweet. In a key first-time partnership, we at the ACP Missouri at Kansas City, Washington Square Park to distribute clothes, blankets, and pillows to hundreds experiencing homelessness. So the reason why we started RBN chapters, the reason why we pushed mutual aid when no one was doing that before, is because we at RBN, we wanted to see more of this. We didn't want to have a monopoly on it. We wanted to see more of it. So good job, guys. And I'll pass to Carlos first this time to go in the opposite order. Or anyone in the panel here. You guys apparently had an election win. And I want you guys to discuss your on-the-ground activities as well, because I'm behind. I'm just now getting caught up on this. I didn't even know about the Kansas City event. I want you guys to talk about your guys' mutual aid actions. Someone won an election in ACP. So I want you guys to talk about your strategy in that. So I'll pass to Carlos first, then we go around the panel.
Yeah, I mean, for the tradition that we come out of, which is Marxism, Leninism, the communist tradition, it's essential to build dual power. In those areas where the ruling class fails working people, communists have to be there building the alternative institutions such that in the case that, the revolution comes around, you already have the institutions in place to take advantage of it. And for us, the centerpiece of our organizing at the ACP is conducted through three prongs. One of them is recognizing that there's real existing communities that we have to be a part of. And the way that you win these people over is usually not through, having an argument with them and debate throwing them into accepting communism. That's not how people are going to accept after a century of McCarthyism, communist ideas. You win them over through deeds. You show them what communists are all about in the deed, not just through words, which are pretty cheap, but in the deed. Show them what we're about through these actions, through feeding the homeless, giving them clothes, cleaning up our communities. That's a central part of our work, integrating ourselves with good deeds into our communities, winning the trust of working people where we live, of our coworkers, integrating ourselves into either existing unions or generally thinking about organizing the workplaces that are not yet organized. Another central component that we have as part of our organizing strategy is building, proletarian enterprises, socialist small businesses in our communities, which are in a ever-ending contradiction and antagonism with big monopoly finance capital. And I don't know about you guys, but I like going into a town and seeing a bunch of small businesses that are unique, not just seeing the same cosmopolitan, shitty big businesses that I can find anywhere else in the world. So that's one strategy that we have in order to build up, the self-sufficiency in order to carry out our operations and not just do it in the forms of dues. And then in conjunction with those two strategies comes the political question, which is ultimately the question that we aspire to answer through the conquest of political power by our class. And who's going to be able to succeed in the conquest of political power locally, regionally, or nationally? It's going to be the people that have shown themselves to be able to serve the people, to be the ones that actually represent the people's interest. And Christopher Halali, our international secretary at the party, was able to win the first election, hopefully of many, many more, at a local scale. He won the position of high bailiff, which is the person that oversees the sheriff and everything else, in Orange County, Vermont. And this was a product of months and months of work and servicing our community. And, this is a strategy we're replicating all across the nation. So, in the next year, you'll see many more Chris Halalis pop up here and there around the country, because people are tired of the way things are. They're tired of the duopoly. They're tired of the trajectory that their lives are heading towards, and they are ready for alternatives. And I think that anti-communist hysteria begins to come down when we interact with them, when we don't have this condescending attitude that the cosmopolitan coastal elite DSA leftists have, and when we show them in the deed, we're the guys that are here to help and to represent your interest as fully and broadly as we possibly can.
Yeah, this is and I'll pass it to Noah next, but I was showing some more stuff. I just found this while he was talking. Look at this. ACP Oregon walks the picket line with striking Boeing machinists. Once again, no matter how you feel about it, you have to admit this is good work. ACP volunteers to feed those in need. So I see the ACP out there actually engaging in the work, and I have seen the response of your haters, and they will say stuff like, well, the ACP, the only reason they're joining with picketing workers because they're trying to get in on the grift. They're actually grifting. That's why they are volunteering. That's why they are actually feeding the homeless. It's a complicated grift. Whenever I see people say stuff like that, I'm like, man, I wish we had more grifters on the left end. I literally seen that before. I literally see people say, well, it's just another example of the grift.
Nick,
okay, bro.
Can I say something?
Feeding homeless the grift now. Now, guys, I would have been on your guys' ass if I didn't see you guys doing this. I would have been like, oh man, well, ACP, they're not doing shit. Trust me, I would have been the first one. But I can't share that critique. But so Noah, I'll pass to you. I just saw this as Carlos.
Can I say something real quick before we go to Noah? There's this thing that Michael Parenti points out about bourgeois ideology and the U.S. propaganda against the Soviet Union. If people protested, it was because it was an authoritarian regime that didn't represent the people and deserved to crumble down. If people didn't protest, it was because it was an authoritarian regime that didn't represent the people that deserved to come down. It's the same thing with the ACP haters. If we hadn't done the work, they would have attacked us as grifters. We're not actually there to do the work. But now that we're doing the work, because we're grifters and we're just trying to pretend that we're doing the work. It's whatever we do, because they're already predisposed to think of it negatively, they're going to smear it in some form or another.
And that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting to see if you guys were going to do the work before I gave my endorsement. I see you guys do the work. I see it was consistent, and I like it. I like the work that you guys are doing unapologetically. Noah, anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, this was our very first nationwide program as a party. It's not just like one or two things. It's the entire party all over the country doing this all the time. Our convention, we had our first convention last month, right? We made sure that the day after, we all rolled up to Humboldt Park, one of the biggest homeless encampments in the entire country. And we did it there, and we cleaned up that park, and we fed those people, and we gave those people clothes. Carlos mentioned something about this, that these anti-communists, which is really what they're all turning themselves into, just McCarthyite anti-communists, they for years, decades before we came on the scene, and I'm including you guys, RBN, in this as well, before this whole new communist movement came on the scene, they sort of controlled what left was, right? And what they would do is they would form a community out of nothing, out of their ideas, and all being like thinking each other were cool, right? Then they would go to the existing communities there already were and say, hey, we're going to lead you. We're going to tell you stupid people what to think and what to do. We're the best. Come vote for us. And people would rightly say, get the hell out of here, right? They didn't do anything over maybe 40 years, 4 decades. They changed nothing. Nothing. They had the biggest protest demonstration in American history happen during this time, after George Floyd was murdered by the state. And they changed nothing with that potential. And it's because they come from outside of the existing communities as a foreign entity telling them what to do. So the Communist Party says that we're already part of these communities. What we need to do is establish within them that communists aren't these, blue-haired college kids. And we're not all, what the McCarthy era told you. We're not here to have Stalin come eat your baby, right? We are, no matter what, the people who help and the people who fight. And when people see that, there is an overwhelmingly positive response. The only negative response we have is these people who drape their anonymous online profiles in hammers and sickles and try to tell everyone they're the real communists without being in a party, without doing any work, without being in the struggle. And I find that a little bit suspicious.
While hating the working class.
Precisely.
I remember it was a while ago, I caused a controversy on Twitter by these anonymous fake communists where they said, well, I said, I want to march with Trump supporters, white people. I don't care as long as they support my ideology, because if you want to march with a black guy, you can't be that racist, right? And then, bro, I remember the fucking freak out. But they're like, RBN endorsed partnering up with white supremacists. Like, you guys just have a fucking rabid hatred of the working class. So when I say I wanted to work with my neighbors, the first instinct they had was to say that RBN is advocating working with racists. And that's why I'm like, okay, you guys just hate workers. You guys just hate the American people as a whole. Go ahead, Eddie. I'll pass it to you. And then we give our final thoughts here, so we wrap up here soon. Anything else you want to add, Eddie?
Yeah, sure. I see some people in the chat asking how they can get involved, and I just want to say acp.us. Just make sure you have a Telegram account, and then you can go on there and join. And if there's a chapter in your area, we'll get you linked up with them. Some of the states around the country are still waiting on to have enough members to form a chapter. So even if there's not a chapter in your state yet, make sure you join, because that might, you might be the last person we need to actually form a concrete chapter. But to echo some of the things Noah or Carlos and especially Noah were saying, ideology is important for a political party. Ideological education, like what RBN does with their streams and what we do with the Midwestern Marx streams, is also extremely important. But ideology, especially right now, is not that important to regular people. McCarthyism is kind of dying. You have older boomers who have this anti-communist block in their heads, but we've experienced very few people or very few organizations who say, we're not going to accept free food and free warm clothes from you because you're communists, right? And in fact, once we start meeting their needs and ingrain ourselves in the community, and once they see through our actions, not just our words, that we're actually about helping them, which is something that I've always loved about RBN, because you guys have always had the on the ground work as a major priority. They're more receptive to our ideas. They're more receptive to ideological education. And Chris Halali is a perfect example of this, who just won his election for High Bailiff. Even though he's a communist in Vermont, he was able to get, over 400 people to write his name in. It was a write-in election. It's not like they just scratched a bubble. They had to write Chris Halali in order to vote for him. And this is because he is so thoroughly ingrained himself in his community. Chris is a little older than us. He's been doing a lot of this great work for years. And the people of his community trust him. They don't care that he's a communist and, they might not identify as a communist. They recognize that he's one of them, and he's willing to put his own health and safety and energy and labor on the line in order to fight for them. To the point where they voted him into political power, which, is a micro scale version of what we're trying to do all across the country. Show people through our actions that we care about them, ingrain ourselves in the community through working with them, ingrain ourselves with local community groups, like what our comrades here in Michigan were doing by supporting community groups who were doing this town hall for healthcare. And by building these connections, we can learn to, people will gain people's trust, and then they'll support us ideologically or support, a communist party that actually represents the workers taking political power.
And in that picture, I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was, people with the MAGA hats on and stuff. And the bottom comment, one of the things that it says was that after we announced that the donations and the help that was being given was being done by the American Communist Party, there was a whole round of applause, and a few ladies came to shake the chapter executive in Michigan's hand.
Nice.
So the generation that should be still knee deep into this McCarthyite bullshit, even them are able to give a round of applause to a communist party when it actually serves them.
Nice. Here's Zoya, our friend. Zoya's love. Zoya's life. American communists have to learn a lot about solidarity. Step one, if you're punching down, you're a little cop. Let me put emphasis on that point. You're a little cop, not a communist. Communists talk and educate. Absolutely. Very, very well said. These are the same people who wouldn't organize with the socialists in Brazil, because a lot of socialists in Brazil are evangelical Christians who have socially conservative opinions. So a lot of American quote-unquote communists will call South American communists fascists simply because they don't support abortion, because they may have non-politically correct opinions on gender pronouns. Those errors have to end. I truly believe that we organize along class line, if we support each other's material needs, we can come to consensus and we can understand each other through being together in the struggle, which I hope we will continue to do at RBN, and hope you guys continue to do good work at the ACP and Midwestern Marx. So, no, I'll start with you last time. Any last words you guys have as a group? Anything you want to promote as we begin to wrap the stream up? Any final thoughts?
I just have one final thought. That whenever they do precisely what you're just talking about in Brazil, they're showing us that no matter what they say, they are at the end of the day a liberal who only cares about their liberalism. If they don't put the class struggle first, and they make it so that their liberal, social liberalism, or whatever they want to call it, is the most important thing, and they divide over that, then they're just a liberal. Regarding promotion, we got a ton of stuff coming up. We got the first Red America, the party's theoretical journal, just came out. I'm very, very proud of my essay in there. And it's not even remotely the best one. So anyone who wants to check that out, it's on our website at acp.us.
Yeah, I see the super chat. Let me read the super chat as well. The Black Panthers had a section in their program calling for Black people to vote on whether they want to be an independent nation. Is ACP open to this? You guys want to take that on?
Yeah, sure. We're open to, anybody who wants national sovereignty, but I think that the black belt thesis is kind of outdated. I think if you polled Black Americans and obviously correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak for Black Americans as a white American, but I think if you polled them, the vast majority of them would see themselves as Americans. And, the black belt thesis came from a time that was pre-MLK. It came from a time when there was apartheid and Jim Crow. before, when there was actual legal segregation of the white and black sections of the working class, and unions and even communist parties in America or socialist parties in America were racist or discriminatory. And what we want to do is build a unified America where everybody, that encompasses and represents everybody.
Yeah,
all
that's
sections.
my reaction to this is I want to overthrow the American capitalist system. I'm not trying to create a safe haven from it. You know what I mean? Like this seems like Black Zionism. Like we're gonna create a Black Zionist state. What we're gonna do? Take California? What are we gonna do? So I need to read up on this more. To be clear, I haven't read that much about this, but I'm not necessarily supportive of it either because I want to overthrow capitalism.
Henry Winston has a fantastic book that addresses this question called Strategy for a Black Agenda. Probably the greatest communist in American history. And he was a chairman of the old Communist Party for decades during segregation as a black man. I just think that it's a weirdly framed question because, like, if this were going to happen, the ACP wouldn't even get a say in it, right? Like, why would we be like, hey, black people?
And what's the ACP position on reparations? Anyway, anything else you want to say, Carlos, as we wrap up?
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
About that comment, then I'll use it to wrap up as well. And I'll make a very provocative statement. And it might get me canceled, but I'm going to make it. If you're looking for a black nation, America is a black nation. And I'll tell you why. Let me explain. For us, as Marxists, we define things by the contradictions that make up the thing and the movement, the role that those contradictions play in the trajectory of the thing that we're describing. And you can't speak about America itself without speaking about the Black freedom movement. I mean, the struggle that has been waged first against slavery, then against apartheid, has been the heart of what has made America what it is. And, for me, like, what makes America special is impossible to think about that without the contributions that have came from that Black freedom movement, which has been a real concrete struggle, and that at the level of culture has produced the essence of what American culture is. You can't think about American culture without the contributions that have came from the Black proletariat, as Du Bois would have called it. So, it's a provocative statement, I know, but for me, America, what makes America America is, indispensably tied to that struggle of Black people and working class people in general, progressive, socialist, communists, to make it a better world and to overthrow the conditions that part of the proletariat was subjected to in order to divide the proletariat as a whole along racial lines. So that's cancel me now. That's
it was great to have you guys on. Make sure you guys support the work of Midwestern Marx, and most importantly, get involved in your community. Even if you disagree with what we say on this panel, please do not be like those do nothing bitches on Twitter. If you at any point had your feelings hurt by what I say in this stream, probably because you're doing nothing. So please don't just laugh on YouTube. Please get activated in your community in any way that you can. And that's the message that we have at RBN. And I'm sure that you guys have at Midwestern Marx. Always great to have you guys on. We definitely will do it again. Good luck to ACP, Midwestern Marx, and anything they do. And make sure you guys check out Sabby and JB tomorrow. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good rest of your day, guys. Peace out.